afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the community chat show. In this show, we address issues that impact communities in Uganda. And today, we are discussing something that has just been on the minds and has also been in the news in East Africa and the world over, and that is the Kenyan elections. However, for us here as the community show, we give it a community perspective. And we are discussing how the elections in Kenya have impacted communities, mainly the communities in Eastern Uganda that deal so much with Kenya, that rely so much on the Kenyan economy, that rely so much on the happenings in Kenya for their trade and day-to-day life. To join me in discussing this, I have a number of people who will give us their perspectives, and they will share with us their experience in during the political times in Kenya. What happens to them? How are they impacted? How do they, perceive things when Kenya is having elections? I'll begin with Mr. Kakai. Nimrod, we shall first have all the panelists introduce themselves, and then we shall kick off the discussion. Let me begin with you, Nimrod.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Martin. My name is Nimrod Kakai, and I'm very, very happy to be here today this afternoon to discuss, the impact of Kenyan elections on our neighboring communities. I'm a son of Namisindwa District, the last district when you go through Mbare route to Wakaka, entering the western part of Kenya. I sit at the extreme end of the district, so I have both relatives in Uganda and in Kenya. So I always, move around and boast that I'm a dual citizen of Kenya and Uganda. So I clearly have a good view, and I'll be glad to share my story. Thank you so much.
Let's have Zira, then Kiprotich, then Asha, and Cherop in that order.
Hello, good morning, everyone. This is Zira Babu from Busia, Uganda. Whoever knows Busia is the maybe immediate neighbor where we can have a village. Let's say Sophia is in Kenya and Uganda, so we are very close. I'm a population scientist by profession. I'm also a cross-border trader and a member of Busia Women Cross-Border Cooperative. Thank you very much. I'm so happy and I really appreciate being part of the panelists here.
Thank you. George? Okay, let's have Asha. Oh, George. Yes, George. Please introduce yourself, George.
My name is George Kiprotich. I am the Executive Director of Kapchorwa Civil Society Organizations Alliance. We are based in Sebei, and as you know, Sebei is a district that is a region that borders Kenya from the other side. We have the Sabines are the Kalenjin-speaking people. They live in Kenya. They also live in Uganda, and their relatives this side, their relatives the other side. So you find that what happens the other side across Kenya impacts directly in this to them in this other side. So that's why we people really with keen interest follow the Kenyan politics, and they do participate. Half of maybe a quarter or could be half of the people in Sebei having Kenyan identity cards, and that's why they really participate with keen interest in Kenyan politics. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Asha?
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
This is Namakula Asha from Busia, Uganda. I'm a businesswoman by profession. I do different businesses both in Uganda and from Kenya. I'll be glad to share a story on this platform. Thank you.
Thank you. We are really waiting for that story. Thank you. George, the second George. No, this is Cherop. Yes, Mark. Please, Mark.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Once again, my name is Mark Cherop. I work for Kapchorwa Civil Society Organization Alliance, and Kiprotich is my ED. So I just want to add on what he has said. For us here in Sebei, as we border Kenya, a lot that happens there impacts on us, maybe directly or indirectly. We had, like, for example, this year, the prices of commodities like fertilizer shot up, and during campaigns in Kenya, as we followed, the president-elect and his team promised that the prices of this fertilizer, if given the mandate to lead Kenya, would come down. And that is something that the residents here are so much looking forward to. For example, they said the price will, for example, reduce from the current 7,000 Kenya shillings to 2,500 in Kenya. So that would so much impact on us because, for example, we depend on Kenya for most of these things. For example, fertilizer and fuel. So with politics ending in fuel, I'm so much optimistic and looking forward to what is going to happen next, because we have seen how the prices of fuel has shot up in the last few days. And also now that for this side, the president-elect in Kenya has, maybe we can say, roots in Sebei here, for example. Many people are now going to associate. There are those people who had left Kenya maybe because of insecurity and other reasons. I think this is the time that some people are going to pick interest to go back home, for example, and say maybe because we now have somebody who speaks the same dialect with us, we are going back to settle in Kenya. So that is how I feel it's going to impact on the neighboring countries, like, for example, Kenya, and also for the policies that they are going to have. Because I would say, for example, the border here in Swam, and I think this is my personal perception. Like, for example, if it so happened that, just like it has happened, Ruto is the president-elect, I think it's going to be much more easier for people decide to cross to Kenya, because now they say, like, they will have that access. The leaders from the western part of Kenya, as are related, we can say they have relatives from this side of Uganda, and it's going to be that easy for Ugandans this side to penetrate Kenya because they have relatives in Kenya. It's going to be much more easier for them to cross. So I think that is what I can raise for now, and I'll be happy to be back maybe to share a little more. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And you've kick-started the conversation we are having today. So I want to come to you, Zira, to open, to further give us your experience of trade and doing business during the Kenyan elections. What is your experience? I don't know. First, how long have you been a trader or lived in that area? And what has always been your experience whenever Kenya is having elections? And maybe before you start, for context to viewers, Uganda borders Kenya in the east, and a number of ethnic groups are shared between Kenya and Uganda. So you'll find that the entire, and it borders, it could be, if it has, I think, the second longest border with Uganda after Congo, possibly. So Uganda as a country and Kenya are very, have been in a pod. We share a lot. Many ethnic groups share a lot. In fact, languages that are spoken in Uganda, the eastern part of Uganda, are also spoken in the eastern part of Kenya. Uganda is also one of Kenya's biggest trading partners. So we benefit a lot from Kenya, and Kenya also benefits a lot from us. Above all, we are brothers, we are sisters. In fact, there was a time when Kenya's vice president was a brother to another person who was running for presidency in Uganda. So that is how much connected we are, and that gives the context to this discussion we have here today. So many people that we have are also, like they told you, trade and are also in those communities that are shared between Uganda and Kenya. Please, Zira.
You asked how long I've been in Busia. I'm a born of Busia, have grown up from Busia, and I joined business as early as at the age of 18. Actually, before 18, that is now official business, because I started business. People who live at the border know parents involve their children in labor or in trade at a very young age. So I started trade in P4, and that was maybe informal trade where it was smuggling. And two of my parents were smugglers, so I had to participate in whichever way, because we needed to maybe get the way going, we needed to have basic needs, and then as kids also play a role. That's what happens at the border. If your parents, let's say they sell sweet bananas, you put bananas at the head and hook to Kenya, from Uganda to Kenya. Maybe if they're smuggling goods, let's say from Busia, maybe to Bulgaria or anywhere, you're tasked, at least for us, what we could do, actually you could be dressed in a uniform as if you're going back to school and you're given maybe illegal goods. Let's say where the country is not allowed to be brought in. Maybe caveras from Kenya to smuggle them to Uganda as early as when I was in P4. That is around 9 years, right? So during the Kenyan election, we know Uganda and Kenya like closely trade together. So me personally, I deal in Irish that I get from Nakuru and bring it to Uganda. So we had challenges during that period as the business community. Most of these people who have vehicles, the ones we hire from vehicles to bring us the goods, could not risk their vehicles because we already know when Kenya has elections, you totally don't know what happens. Not only Kenya, but any other country. When they have elections, you cannot tell whether it is going to be peaceful or they're going to be violence. So most of these truck owners could not release their vehicles to bring goods to Uganda because they don't know in the middle of maybe coming within the way, they don't know what can happen. Anything can happen. We can witness what happened in 2007 in Kenya. Those memories have not yet told. Whenever Kenya has elections, those memories are fresh because they don't know what next. Even in 2017, when Kenya had elections, still we saw what was happening. More people were killed. There was, okay, they maybe repeated the election process. But the business community has been so much affected. There are stores at the border. Now, those who have ever been in Busia, there is what we call the no man's land, where Kenyans have stores and the Kenyans also have stores. So those who have stores in Uganda, on the Ugandan side, we feel Kenyans are our potential customers. I'm also in the eggs business. I have a store at the no man's land in Busia, Uganda. So when we offload eggs, Kenyans are our potential customers. We have less market in Uganda. But during this period, Kenyans could not buy anything because we're all in houses. They don't know what will happen. They fear to come out. They concentrated more on their election because they felt, what if I move out to go and buy something and maybe violence starts when I'm on the way? So we had no customers. And then the disabled people that we have. One who has ever been in Busia, you never know, disabled people in Busia are the most hardworking people, if I can say. So they have wheelchairs where they go to Kenya, pick goods and bring them to the traders in Uganda, those who have shops. They usually use the disabled community. So what happened in this process of the election, those shops where you buy things in Kenya were all closed. They were not operating. So even people who survive on that, on such kind of work to earn a living, could not survive because they were not working. So it was very hard for them to maybe get the basic needs they needed and everything they needed to run their life. And then in the same category of business, the exchange rate during that period, Kenyans were not coming to buy things in Uganda. So we didn't have more of Kenyan currency. So the exchange rate was a bit high. So the Kenyan currency was gaining value and the Ugandan currency was losing value because now you could lose a lot of money maybe, because at first the exchange rate was at 30 to 31. So during the election period, it went to 32. So you needed extra money to purchase, to buy the Kenyan currency in case you needed anything from Kenya. We know well when you're staying in Uganda, the economy has been hard. But in Kenya, the prices of maize flour went a bit slow. You could get 2 kilograms at 1,000. That is something like 3,100. it's when you could get 2 kilograms of posho. And here in Uganda, you could get a kilogram of posho at around 3,500, 1 kilogram. So we preferred going to Kenya as a means of saving. You could go to Kenya supermarkets and maybe buy 2 kilograms of posho to bring home. Fuel was high in Uganda. The fuel prices have been at around 7,000 to 6,800. And then in Kenya, it has been on at 160 Kenya shillings. That is around 5,200 shillings. So fuel was gotten from Kenya, and then some foodstuffs, like even soap. Soap, the Kenyan brand was cheaper than the white stuff that is produced in Uganda. So we opted to go the other side. But during the Kenyan elections, all these shops were closed. We could not get such commodities that we needed at all. You could not access them. All shops were closed. Then maybe I can talk about other services that we could not access during that period because of the elections. We also have the health services. In Busia, we have the health center for, but there are services that are not offered at the health center for level and are supposed to be gotten from the nearest referral hospital that is in Kenya, at the Busia, Kenya district. It's where the hospital is. So in case you need scanning, in case there are those who are on ARVs and they get their treatment from the referral hospital in Busia, Kenya. During that period, they could not cross because even the border people who carry people from Busia, Uganda to Busia, Kenya could not work. They say they cannot risk their lives. So people who were on ARVs could not go to the hospitals. Even the doctors, we know that most of them were participating in politics, in the elections. Then there are some people who also are on maybe cancer treatments. There are those who go for antenatal services from Kenya. They could not access health services at all because of the election. Everyone had concentrated on that. Then we have the shared natural resources. We have land. I can give an example of Busia, of Sofia. I can give an example of Marachi, Buyengo. There are those nearest towns or nearest villages where I'm living. My home is in Busia, Uganda, and then maybe my farm or my garden is in Busia, Kenya. So I have to cross, even if maybe it's within the same compound, but the fact that there are boundaries. My house is in Uganda, my garden is in Kenya. I cannot go maybe to the garden because I don't know what will really happen, maybe during the elections or anything, because you can expect peace or violence. You really don't know what comes with it. So you cannot just risk to go to the gardens. So most of people's work was stopped. There is Sophia where people from Busia, Uganda, fetch water from Busia, Kenya. So during the election period, everything was tense. There was tension. There's no, you can just cross and start going to pick water because whatever is are different. That I can talk about banking systems. We people who are in trade, most of us have accounts in Kenya, like in Equity Bank, Kenya, because when you're dealing with some people that they will need you to have accounts in their banks. So it's easy for money to be transferred. So we have accounts in Equity, we have accounts in DTB, that's Kenya. We have accounts in KCB. So during this period, all those banks have been closed. There is no way you could make transactions. So it has really been very hard. And then there are polygamous families. A man has a wife in Kenya and they have a wife. You have a wife in Busia, Uganda. You have a wife in Busia, Kenya. Imagine they crossed. When that period came, men rushed to come to Uganda and settle. So the families back in Kenya, in Busia, Kenya, lacked attention because the man ran away to come this side to be safe. So those families lacked a lot of attention. Then we have entertainment. Kenyans, their alcohol or alcoholic drinks are all expensive. So they always come to Kenya, to Uganda, so that they get the cheaper ones. Actually, when you're in Busia and you get Kenyans, when you get a bar that is full and people ordering for more things, just know those are Kenyans. Ugandans don't spend like that. Because the Kenyans feel back in their homes. Alcohol is very expensive. One bottle in Kenya buys 10 bottles in Uganda. So even the entertainment businesses in Uganda rely on the Kenyan citizens. And during this election period, Kenyans could not just cross anyhow. They couldn't, they kept in homes. So our entertainment businesses were not working. All bars were empty because Kenyans were concentrating on elections. Then maybe what else I can talk about? Let's say education. In Busia, when you look around, people don't think like our standards, all the schools in Busia are not of good standards like the ones of Kenya. So they prefer to take their children to Kenya. And during this election, all children were brought back. We didn't know what was happening. We didn't know whether there was going to be peace. We didn't know maybe there was going to be election. At some point, they said they'll go back on Wednesday. Later, they said on Friday. Later, they sent us messages, wait till we declare everything. So we're on tension. Really don't know whether to get admissions in Ugandan schools. We didn't know whether to keep calm because you don't know, anything can happen. Then maybe some other thing I can talk about. But then it wasn't only, we didn't only have the negatives. We also have the positive side as Ugandans in business. Because you see what happens when Kenya is calm, it is very hard for Ugandans to access quality goods or products that are produced within their own country. We have, like we traders, the us who deal also in Matoke, we get Matoke maybe from Barara, Oshenyi, and bring them to the border. But you get the good quality ones because you're going to sell them expensively to the Kenyans. The poor quality ones will stop for the Ugandans. They will not get the best. When we bring pineapples, you get the best quality, you give them to Kenyans because you're going to earn a lot. So Ugandans won't have chance to have the good.
I want to cut you short. I want to cut you short. And we shall come back to you when you said you have quite a number of also positives to share. We are going to come back and we want to hear those positives. Can we have Nimrod also share his experience?
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, we want to hear, personal, those stories like she shared, how you experience these things from a personal level and a community level further. So please feel free to share, as much as you can from personal experience of those around you, experience of those you trade with, and in the community. Oh, Nimrod seems to have dropped off. Let's come to you. Nimrod, are you able to hear?
Please, I'm very able to hear.
Please, we want to hear from you.
Thank you so much, Martin. Thank you so much, my fellow panelists, Zira, for giving an ample view of what happens on the border. As I said earlier, I come from the border of Ruakaka, or we call it Ruahaha, in Namisindwa District. And as a son, I would love, before I talk about what happened, to give my own experience of what happened to me and to our family during this Kenyan election. In 2007, I was about 9 years, 10 years. And during that time, Kenya was having an election. And we stayed close to the border, very, very close to the border. With my parents, we could trade from Kenya to Uganda. Now, during 2007, those who knows the western part of Kenya, and basically where the Kalenjins come from, that is Chebukube and Cheptais, up there, the hills. In a particular morning, we woke up to bombs, we woke up to noise and, unusual sound. It was like unbelievable. We were young at home, close to the river, just hearing, this unusual sound. Not knowing that the man called Matekwei had infiltrated Kenya and the killings had started in the neighborhood. I want to tell our viewers that what happened to us, to see that experience, it's the reason why with the neighboring community, we give a lot of attention to Kenya. During that time, actually around thousands of Kenyans from Western Uganda, mostly the Kalenjins, flew to Uganda, and with the Babukusu of Kenya, flew to Uganda for safety. In our own home, during that time, I remember we were planting maize. We had over 10 people coming to our home crying for safety. And I want to assure the viewers that those who knows our place down there in Namisindwa, we hosted them. We remember staying them with over a full year. And the most strategic part is that some of them, as we kept staying there, because of their passion, their love for their relatives, they kept going. And up to date, we have never seen them. We have never seen them up to date. Some actually were killed, were slaughtered in Kenya. And we used to stay with these people. So I have exact experience of what it means when Kenya is having an election. And during that time, we went through a lot. The community was full of anxious. The community could not understand what's happening. Now, the killing that happened in Kenya, all of us lost relatives. that will stay in the neighborhood. All of us lost our beloved ones. Now that brings me to a point of why do we pay a lot of interest to Kenyan election as a neighborhood? So one, it is a time when Ugandans on the neighborhood be so anxious not to see such things again happening to our communities, because seeing our own people dying in Kenya, seeing our own relatives seeing our people who have been hosting for full year, just going back to check on their relatives at the Matekwais in Kenya, slaughtering these people. It was a very, very tragic moment. But Martin, bring to speed our viewers of, we now mostly who live in Wakaka have grown up while knowing that for us paraffin, we buy it from Kenya. We didn't know that actually we can buy paraffin in Uganda. We know that as young children, we have to cross to buy paraffin in Kenya. It is normal. Two, we know that buying soap, bread, and sugar, we have to buy it in Kenya. Like we didn't know that you have to buy the things actually in Uganda. It was a culture that every evening you cross on a bicycle to Kenya and purchase the things for home use. So when Kenya goes through an election, we highly impacted because one, crossing becomes much difficult. Actually, to some extent in our areas, they cut off bridges, these are wooden bridges, because they don't want us to just cross, because most of the people in the neighborhood, we have, they have those citizenship, they have Kenyan IDs and Ugandan IDs, and they could cross freely. But because when the sensitivity of election comes in, we tend not to move freely. So in another way, the things we buy and purchase from Kenya are challenged. But allow me to just give a perspective of, yes, I will go to speak about the neighborhood, clear neighborhood, but as a country as well. You know that historically from 1961 to 1965, along with Tanzania, we belong to East African Common Service Organization, whereby, there was loose federal state in the community that Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania could trade freely. But coming to 2001, the formation of the East African Community, and moving on, it is clear that they tighten when the elections happens. They tighten these agreements. You realize that Uganda, being the biggest, Kenya being our biggest market for exports, it's clear it becomes very challenging during the time of the elections. We lose a lot of money, and it's clear in the current statistics we lost over $2 million during Kenyan elections because we could not export. But going back to the neighborhood, one in Wakaka, where I come from, on the neighborhood, I will reiterate a few things that my sister Zira, told us earlier. One is that realize that there's an increase in inflow of people who cross from Kenya to Uganda in anticipation of violence. They keep crossing, and when they cross, they come to Uganda, they keep adding on our already pressure of population that we have in the neighborhood. Already have a challenge of the population density, but during elections, you realize that so many vehicles cross to Uganda, so many people use porous borders to cross to Uganda in anticipation that anything can happen, and they want to be sure of their security. And two, the issue of panic in the society is a serious matter. When you're around those areas, people don't put off their radios. In our area, actually, we listen more to Kenyan radios than Ugandan radios. But every homestead will find it, tuning in their radio, trying to understand what's happening. So there's a lot of anxiety in the society. There's a lot of panic in the society. People will be wondering who is going to be the next leader of Kenya, who is going to be, the next president of Kenya, and what will be the outcome. Will it be a free and fair election? Another thing is, in the neighborhood, realize that there is a standstill in business. There's a serious standstill in business. When you're in Wakaka, you realize that during normal days, maybe during normal times of no election, there's high level business, money exchange, people ferrying goods from Kenya to Uganda, and we're taking our bananas to Kenya, everything we trade with Kenya. But during the election, you realize that there's a serious standstill. There's always a very serious standstill at the border because, one, the Kenyan border restricts a lot of entry, and also Ugandans, we fear, for the fear of our lives, we stop taking our goods to Kenya. And this has led to decrease in incomes for the people who definitely depend on, moving goods from Uganda to Kenya. I can tell you sure that in Uganda, for us who stay in the neighborhood, we use more of Kenyan wheat than Ugandan wheat. We import more of wheat of Kenya because it is more cheaper in terms of home use and businesses. So during elections, it became very difficult to access wheat. And when it comes to increase of prices as well, affected more, and elections actually worsened the situation. Wheat and cooking oil, this thing we import more from Kenya to Uganda. And during elections, it became more tough for the business community in the neighborhood to access these products from Kenya. And this affected the incomes of the community, but most importantly, it affected the people around the community because they depend on eating these things daily. So Martin, the Kenyan elections put the neighborhood in a very serious state of anticipation. The pressure that comes with that election is more than what you can believe. For us who went through that 2007 experience, trust me, up to date, we must congratulate Kenya. When I see what's happening in Kenya, congratulate them upon having a peaceful transition. Yes, president-elect not swearing in, I don't know whatever happened, but at least we are sure that it has been so far very, very peaceful. But also speak about the few positive things that happened with this election. One, it's a benchmark of democracy. As a nation, maybe we have shortcomings in our democracy, but when we are in the neighborhood there and we see what happens in Kenya and we see what happens in Uganda during election times, we try to benchmark. We say, hey, but guys, look, Kenyan teams are moving freely. Kenyan campaigns are moving on freely. The media is giving everyone coverage. People are coming up to the border to campaign freely. You see Ruto coming to Wakaka, to Webuye, Bungoma, campaigning freely. Raila coming to Webuye, Wajakoya coming, and they're campaigning freely to up to the extent of coming close to the border, looking for support. And we also know what happens in this country because of maybe security and the government try to restrain here and there. So it's a serious benchmark for us who are in the nearby communities in terms of our democracy. It gives us a chance to rate, are we developing in terms of democracy, or are we also just trying to figure things out as a country? So you realize that during elections, we try to benchmark things like democracy process, election process in Kenya. You see that for those friends who vote from Kenya and from Uganda, they see how the process goes there. It is a bit much clear. Through the boost of business, still as people come from Kenya to Uganda, as much as they increase on the population, but also they give us market. Because if you find out that all the guest house around the area of our neighborhood be full during Kenyan election, at least people say, let's go and stay there. So there also some bit of, increase in inflow of income from this population that keeps migrating during election times to come and have safety in Uganda. So you realize that as much as there are a lot of negative things that happen around, but also these positive things, I think we should seriously recognize them. Another thing is that education. I'm very much sure that so many of my relatives, actually, because of this anxiety and all that, they shift their children from studying from Kenya to Uganda. When you go to Mbale today and you check on the status of how many students you have from Kenya during this year, there'll be many, because parents keep participating in Kenya that maybe anything will happen. And for them to be sure, they decide to bring their children to study from Uganda. So there's also a boost in our education. And this is a reminder that maybe we can actually work together, can actually have the same standards here and there. So there's also, I believe that during elections, the health system between the borders are seriously improved. For example, when you are, let me give an example of a health center 3 in our region, Magale Health Center 3. There are a lot of inhabitants who come from Kenya, come and take over or to seek for treatment in Uganda. And in case of any serious issue in Kenya, they are sure that their health is very, very well catered in Uganda. So Martin and the viewers in this afternoon, I believe that there are so many things. And I must also congratulate Kenyans that going through this process, it is a plus to us as much as comes next few negatives here and there. But yes, we benchmark and congratulate them for keeping peace for the betterment of us, the neighbors of Kenya and Uganda. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nimrod. I would like to hear from you, Asha. Okay, if Asha is not ready, let us hear from George. George, give us your experience during this election time in Kenya, and perhaps even before. If you have a personal story, please share too. Okay, Mark, please chip in.
Once again, thank you for giving me the opportunity to share. And I just want to give my own experience, or the experience and the feel of how it has been here in Civic. In 2007, when there was election violence in Kenya, I was still a young boy. But I saw many things because living in the border, we saw Kenyans coming with their families to live in Uganda. I didn't know much about it, but I came to understand it over time that it was because of the election violence that those people had shifted to Uganda. This time round, in my own experience, is that the people of Sebei felt this election much more than they have ever felt any Ugandan election, because they knew it was directly going to impact on them. We had President Moi sometime back in Kenya, but I want to tell you, he never set foot in Sebei, and the people of Sebei did not so much feel his leadership. But before ascending to power, President-elect Ruto had visited Sebei several times, campaigned for Museveni here, and the people felt he is one of our own. He came here and told the people that in a society where there are more bars than schools and churches, that society is headed for doom. He supported the churches here during fundraising. He supported schools here during fundraising. And he advised President Museveni, these people deserve a road, the road that is now connecting to Swamp, the border. Even during the groundbreaking, he was here. So the people of Sebei felt this election much more than they have ever felt any Ugandan election or Kenyan election, because they knew what the president-elect had done for them and what they expect from him. The people who have their sons and daughters schooling in Kenya, some of them withdrew their children from Kenya, anticipating the temperatures which were there in Kenya and the uncertainty which was there. Some of them actually shifted their business to Uganda for the meantime, trying to monitor how the situation was in Kenya. So my own experience is that this is an election that Ugandans have felt much more than they have in Kenya. There is a time we had Minister Agre Award, and the brother was leading in the other side of Kenya. I think that time the people of the border felt the benefits of the brothers leading by the time. And I think it is the same thing that the people of Sebei are anticipating from this leadership. So it has a very big impact. Whatever happens in Kenya will directly or even indirectly affect the people of Sebei here. I beg to submit.
Thank you very much for that brief submission. Kiprotich or Namakula, anyone ready? Please share your story. So we want to hear from you, Kiprotich. I have unmuted. Okay, as Kiprotich, Mr. Kiprotich prepares himself, I want to come back to you, Zira, to share with us some of the positives that come with the interconnectedness with Kenya, but also the positives that come out of the Kenyan election. Nimrod has shared with us, and Mark, they have shared with us the benefits that come with this election in the sense of, Nimrod shared in the sense of a democratic inspiration. Kenya they handled their affairs well. The election was successful, and he's of the view that this is a very good lesson for Uganda. It's a good democracy indicator, but it was also, it inspires us to do better as a country when it comes to matters democracy. And Mark has said that indeed the community of the community in Sebei, which shares the same ethnicity with the Kalenjins in Kenya, feel that they're part of, this system. They feel they're even part of the administration in Kenya because one of their own, Ruto William, who is a Kalenjin himself, is into power now. So Zira, I want to hear the positives that you want to share. You had earlier mentioned some. Please go ahead.
I'll talk maybe on part of the business perspective. What happened on the other regime, I don't know if it's still continuing or he's done, the regime of Uhuru Kenyatta. What usually happened in the trade field is this. You load at times, and now we had traders who are dealing in sugar canes from Uganda to take to Kenya. So at some point, they've already loaded the cars, they're at customs waiting for clearance. Abruptly, from nowhere, Kenya says, we are banning sugar canes from entering Kenya. And traders have already used their money to buy those sugar canes. They're at the border, you cannot transport them back. So they had to be banned. At some point still, it was now eggs. Eggs were brought. After waiting for clearance at the border, they tell you Kenyan government said there is a ban on eggs. Quality pineapples, we have tomatoes. The difference with the tomatoes of Uganda, they took long by them to get spoiled. You take them to Kenyans tell you our tomatoes can take a week or 2 weeks without getting spoiled. When you buy tomatoes from Kenya, they get, even if you see maybe on top it is good, but inside it's already spoiled. Their quality is not good. So that Ugandans end up getting poor quality goods, maybe even from Kenya. But the ones of ours that are good quality cross to Kenya so that Kenyans benefit more. But during this period, Kenyans were not crossing to buy. So Ugandans had just to eat their good pineapples. They had just to eat maybe their tomatoes and so on, and bananas, because there was no market now in Kenya. Also, the traders now in Uganda enjoyed the ready market of their own locals. Because now people who are selling White Star, people who are selling posho, those who are selling maybe rice, had the opportunity for these people to buy from them. Since when you're in Busia, rice is bought from Kenya because it's cheaper. Cooking oil is bought from Kenya, it's cheaper. Posho is bought from Kenya, it's cheaper. But this period of elections, all those shops were closed. We don't have a very good supermarket in Busia, Uganda. The supermarkets that have maybe items that someone could buy are in Kenya, Tesia, and then Frank Mart, they're all across. In Uganda, we don't have strong supermarkets. We actually have retail shops that disguise to be supermarkets. Then maybe there was no congestion. If you've ever been in Busia, you see that long queue of trucks. That is always there. You can even fail to get where to pass. You really fail. When you have to go to customs, you end up passing the other side of Tororo Road. And then the nearest maybe shortcut is here at customs. So congestion has been too much, but during the election period, Kenyan vehicles were not allowed maybe to cross. People were so protective. They thought, what if my vehicle crosses and maybe violence starts? And then maybe the driver tells you, I got lost with the car, anything of that kind. What will I do? So vehicles were not there. Most people didn't do business. So there was no congestion at the border. Maybe we can also talk about Kenya this time around. It had women governors, the females. They were quite many. So that's a picture of us women, we have to take up seats in politics. We have to take up front seats, apart from the affirmative seats that we are given of women MPs and so on. So I'm expecting, as maybe people at the border witnessed that, women were so excited about that. We were so excited, as I told you, I'm a member of Busia Women Cross-Border Traders Cooperative. It's entirely women. So we look at other countries and try to see what's new there. We benchmark, we go to different borders, we go to Bondwe, we have a group in Motukola, we have a group in Goli, so we really want to see what's in the other country that we don't have. So this time around, we were so excited. There are female governors who are there, so we know things will keep changing. Now, maybe the female role in politics will now be viewed vividly. I feel in the coming elections of Uganda, we shall have more women vying for the MP seats that are not these women MP specifically. because you can do the same roles that men are doing in those seats. So that was very good for the women. It was really positive for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for those positives. We want to hear from you, Asha, and you, George. If you're able to unmute, please unmute, and you say something in this community show. We want here as diverse stories as possible.
Yes, thank you so much. It's only that are not settled. Let me sit here, but I want to point out that indeed the Kenyan elections impact so much to the way business is done in Uganda, most especially the border communities. For instance, what I'd point out is that during our activities implementation in the civil society sector in Sebei, you find out that we get a lot of people get a lot of information through the media. For example, the TV, the radio stations that are from Kenya, not Uganda. It is hard to get a local or to get to listen or watch the TV station in the Ugandan side, and yet you are in Uganda. People concentrate on the Citizen TV and KTN and K24, the FM stations. So people imagine that they're in Kenya because for you to watch an NTV station, you have to pay. You have to have a DSTV, or you have to pretend that you have gone to the restaurant and buy a cup of tea so that you can watch the news. So people watch Kenyan media free of charge. And yet in Uganda, you have to pay. So people have reached a point where they access a lot of information from Kenya. They associate they have a lot of association. They associate themselves with the Kenyan businesses, the way Kenyan do things, because they access it free of charge. For example, during our civic education engagement, we've been going to the Kenyan radio stations to speak to Ugandans. So you go to a Kenyan station in Kalia, that's West Pokot or Kitale, and you speak like you're in Uganda, and everyone listens, and even Kenyans call in. You see that? And it becomes very interesting because now in Uganda, the FM stations are all for the sub-county, but Kenyan stations cover the whole region. You see that? So you cross and you speak to your own people. It's very amazing. And sometimes even as we cross the other side, we go with the Ugandan government officials. You see that? And people they really get confused and wonder how can we then cross if our own government officials cross to Kenya to speak to us. Who are we not to associate ourselves with Kenyan politics? You see that? And that kind of thing. So even when we organize for the community forums, we announce from Kenyan radios. Kenyans also come cross to Uganda to come and participate, Kenyan leaders, and they are held accountable in a Kenyan side. You see that? And then there's a scenario that's funny. In Swam, across the Kenyan side, it's not developed. The place is not developed. There are no houses, but there's a polling station. There is an administrative unit. There is the LSC1 unit, but there are no people. People are in Uganda. So you find that when you break a law, even in Uganda side, they can refer you to Kenya, and you go and arrested the other side. The people who work in Kenyan side at the border, the policemen, they rent houses in Kenya, in Uganda. So you at the end of the day, you remove your uniform and you cross to Uganda and come and stay. The next morning you cross, you go and put on uniform. You see that kind of thing. So what I'm saying is that even the infrastructure, the radio net, the road networks are very super the other side. There was a point that for us to access Bukwa side, if you are from Kapchorwa, to access Bukwa, the next district, you come to Mbale, pass Wakaka or Malaba, come back, go to Kitale, and then come back to Uganda. You see that? So the network was okay. The road networks was super, unlike compared to the other side. So people think that I think if Kenya is peaceful, if Kenya elect well, they will have a chance to go to Kenya because that is where they access social services more cheaper, more quickly. Like for example, the insurance system, the health sector. People access health services cheaply in Kenya than Uganda, and quality. Another thing, the financial services in Kenya. In Bukwo and Kwen, there are no banks. You see that? And that's the borders that borders. People do a lot of farming, they do a lot of businesses, but they don't have the banks, the financial institutions to bank their money. So they access Kenyan banks, financial institutions quickly, and yet they're in Uganda. So they really see that if things are well in Kenya, they will benefit directly. And you can imagine that even during the other time, the general elections, in Uganda, the Ruto had to fly to Uganda to campaign for Yoweri Museveni. And he spoke in the local language. He persuaded the people that look here, vote for the big man so that the road is worked on. He was going to speak to Museveni, and then the road is worked on. Currently, the road is about to get finished, meaning that the other counterpart, the leaders from the other side, are more influential in their community. People have been crying that we need the road, but when Ruto spoke in one day, the road was worked on. He requested that Resebei is given a full cabinet position. People have been requesting here and there. Only once, when Ruto spoke, we have a minister of water and environment. You see that? People have discovered, and now people requested for schools, maybe construction of schools in the community. And Kenyan government, not coming, but Ruto himself has constructed one secondary school in Kapchorwa, one in Kwen district, and another one in Bukwa district. No other leader here has ever done that. Local leader, for example, or has ever seen that. You know, they speak and they don't act. So people feel the other side, people speak and they act immediately. Another thing is that what I've always spoken about, to access social services like health facilities, health services, and then the financial services, the bank services, people must have IDs. So people have been forced to look for Kenyan IDs so that they can be able to access some of these things, or they can even move free of charge without being intimidated when they're in Kenya. So what I'm pointing out is that people there feel more than Kenyans than Uganda, because those guys, they feel those guys love them more than this other side. The leader, I mean the local leaders. And even a member of parliament in Kenya has got a lot of money. They have CDF, that is, they call it Constituency Development Fund. And they have taken care of the Ugandan side. When people are crying for water, these guys cross and they even drill boreholes in Uganda. When there is an outbreak of these foot and mouth diseases, or when there is vaccination, there is vaccination of cattle in Kenya, they also cross and vaccinate animals in Ugandan side. Something that is funny, but it's happening. It is really happening. In Bukwo, for example, or in Sebei, if you have a Kenyan currency, like you have $1, people look for that money like nothing, because they trade more carefully. They trade more in Kenya than this other side, and the money has got value, and the products is readily available and of cheaper and good standard, good quality. So you can see that you can easily say, I don't want Kenyan currency, and yet you're in Uganda and you want foreign currency. It is happening. If you happen to reach Sebei, you may think you're in Kenya. Motorcycles. People have Kenyan motorcycles like never before. You see that? And they get them through loan. It's a loan scheme. You go acquire a loan, you pay some little money, then you're given a motorcycle so that you pay loan in Kenya. And then now, even when these guys are to recover, they have people who recover for them in Ugandan side. They recognize them as Kenyans. So it is only the border. But in a sense, the business there, what is happening there, it happens like you're in Kenya. So people associate themselves and they know that much of the things that we get, if life is to be improved, if everything is to be done well, they have to participate very keenly in the Kenyan elections because they've seen the benefits, they've seen how things are happening. And I do not want to forget, and I want to point out very clearly that the Kenyan leaders do cross to Uganda to even campaign. If you don't cross to Uganda and campaign in those districts, you cannot, your chances of going through in Kenya as elected leader is very slim because you have to come and convince them. I was saying that almost half of the people there have Kenyan IDs and many of them are still scrambling. Like for example, this money that they pay to the elderly. In Kenya, they pay very well. Now the elders in Uganda, because you have ID, you want to register yourself so that you can get you're paid. The SAGE, you're paid money. So now they know that they will benefit double. They will get from Kenya and they will get from Uganda. And they have also understood very well the issue of East African integration, that you can have a dual citizenship. In Kenya, you can be a Kenyan and you can also be Ugandan, and you work freely, knowing that it's only that when you want to contest to be a political leader, that's when you can relinquish the other one and say, no, now I'm leaving, I'm not a Kenyan, I'm now Ugandan. Then you can now participate freely without any problem. And for example, these athletes, most of our athletes, they used to go and train in Kenya. When they were there, they also registered as Kenyans. And they mastered the art. And now mastering the way Kenyans do things made them to use other ways of beating them up. And that's why now we are beating Kenyans in athletics. It is because people access the other side, they pretended that they are Kenyans. After all, they realized that, oh, when those guys were thinking that these are Kenyans, they literally they know that Kumba they were Ugandans, and we are not beating them hands up. You see that? This is the gymnastics. So associating with them helps us we are now beating them in many other things, which is a plus. And what is funny now again, now those Kenyans now, they want to marry. Most of our athletes who are girls who are running, the women are married to Kenyans. you see, most of them, if you do your statistics, those guys are revenging, but we don't want to revenge. We want to show them that we can beat them in athletics and many other things. And in 5 or 10 years to come from now, those guys are going to respect Uganda. And it's not because of the gymnastics that we use. We pretended because we speak the same language, we speak the same everything, and that kind of thing. So I want to end there for now, and then we proceed. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. In fact, we are actually having one more round of concluding remarks, because really you've all shared the stories about Kenya and Kenyan elections. And this I think this is the most important thing, you know, your personal experiences. And I mean, there's no one who to better tell the story than you people who are at the border. So I want us to have another one round of concluding remarks, your takeaway from this Kenyan election, what you think can be done better, you know, yeah. So anything you'd want to really add, please feel free to add it as you conclude. And we shall do that in 2 minutes each person so that we conclude this afternoon's show. Please, let's have Mark. We shall have Mark, we shall have Zira, then George, and Nimrod in that
I'm
order.
requesting to come among the last.
Okay, let us have Zira. Zira, you wanted to add something on the positives. Please add something and then you can also conclude.
Yes, maybe I left out one point, but I know Mark, is it Mark who said, maybe Mark talked about it. Because during this election period, people, we know in Busia, rentals really don't have, like, it doesn't earn a lot when you have rentals. You may have maybe a single room that is very in a very good condition, in a very maybe strategic area, and you have to rent it at about 60,000 or 50. But during that period of election, some of us had even to leave our rooms so that we have people coming from Kenya occupy them. And then they didn't even stay for long. They gave us money for 3 months because it's a condition. Then after that, they even left because they now feel the place is peaceful. And then we earned out of that. So as I conclude, thank you very much for this opportunity. I think Kenya's elections was really, I don't know, but we really need to benchmark about Kenya's elections as Ugandans. Though we didn't know where it's, at the end of it, it also seemed like it mirrored our own elections, where TV stations were turned off. We really didn't know what was going on, but at least we appreciate. At first, we saw whatever was happening, and then we know all these results were put somewhere where anyone could download them. And we hope next time, maybe Uganda, we can also copy from them. And then maybe from still what we saw from Kenya, I feel like the youth and then the women should join politics, should take up seats, because we shall always keep at the back and say, we're not being considered, this and this is not being done. But I feel when we take up political seats, when we take up leadership seats, we can do better. Our voices can be heard. Our minds can be heard. They can be put everywhere to be heard. But when we sit back and think we are fronting, maybe the youths are fronting the older people and they think their views will be aired. Of course, no. No. Maybe if they are aired, but to a smaller extent. So I feel this should really be encouraging to the women, to the youths, and then to the politicians to make sure maybe when we have elections, they should look at peace. Because you see what you saw in Kenya, even when we're not seeing the results and everyone was on tension, but all leaders came out on their media platforms to tell the Kenyans, please, whatever happens, let's keep peace. Whatever happens, we're all Kenyans. At the end of it all, we don't need to see our fellows dying. We don't need to see maybe a neighbor dying. So we need peace, no violence at all. And that was so good. So we expect when we have elections, maybe years to come, that is 2026, we think our leaders should also copy from that. Let's not push people, we have to fight for this. No, at times peace is better because we shall not die. No one is going to fight when we die. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that powerful submission. Let us have Nimrod.
Thank you, Martin. Our moderator. One, to me, the serious take home in this Kenyan election is the spirit of East African community, the spirit of Pan-Africanism. I would want our viewers and our listeners this afternoon to think and maybe to inform this whole nation that how if we paid a lot of attention to Kenyan election like this as a neighboring community, even in this country, we know that you have seen it everywhere. This whole country, everyone was talking about Ruto Raila, and people even identifying themselves with different candidates. To me, is how best can this lift our spirit of Pan-Africanism, our spirit of Ubuntu, our spirit of East Africa community. If I believe, I was having this conversation with people that I believe as an individual that for us to have good East African community, I think it should be brought down to people, to wananchi to own it. The way neighbors could own an election in Kenya. If we all owned this in Tanzania, if we could own it in Rwanda, if we could own it in South Sudan, maybe if we could own it in DRC, maybe the spirit of East Africa community would be much bigger, better than the way it is. Two, I think the spirit of Pan-Africanism. We realize that even leaders of Uganda were much concerned with what's happening in Kenya. And they were all saying, we need to have a peaceful election to protect Uganda and also to protect Kenya. I think in the spirit of Pan-Africanism, this can be a benchmark that if elections are happening in Kenya, it's everyone's concern for a peaceful transition there. If they're happening in DRC, if they're in Sudan, how can it be a concern of every leader in the region? Because we neighbors are doing our part, in Kenya. Neighbors senior, because we're now just, have narrowed the conversation to neighborhood of Kenya, Uganda. But to me, is something that I envision that how best can this be a reason for us to promote the spirit of Pan-Africanism, to see that the neighbors of Kenya, the neighbors of Rwanda, the neighbors of Sudan can be there for each other. Because these borders, when you are in our areas, you realize these borders are just lines. You know, speaking the same language, for us to speak Lubukusu or Lumasava, in Uganda and Kenya, you have the same king of Vamasava in Uganda and Vamasava in Kenya. What's the issue? That these are just lines. The communities are the same. Can this be a reason for us to unite more as East African new people? Can this be a good market? Why should, you know, Kenyans put restrictions on Ugandan products going to Kenya? Why should Uganda actually put restrictions on Kenya products coming to Uganda? Why should we even belong to East Africa community? If only we come together during elections. I think we have so many reasons, just that you gave me 2 minutes. We have so many reasons to come together. We have so many reasons beyond elections that as neighbors to come together really and try to have these more discussions on understanding how best can we use our communities to promote the goals of East Africa and goals of Africa. I thank you so much.
Thank you, Nimrod. That was another powerful submission indeed, telling us to come together and uphold the spirit of Ubuntu. Let's have George, and then Mark. George, please make your concluding remarks in 2 minutes. Way forward, what we have to learn, what we have to drop from, you know, this experience, and the takeaway for purposes of the border communities.
Thank you, Chief. My concluding remark is that not only Kenyan politics, but all the communities that live at the border, maybe even those ones that live within Kenya, Uganda and Tanzania, Uganda and Rwanda, Congo, Southern Sudan. There is always a very unique, there's always a very unique, maybe I would say features that sometimes if we don't share, it may go without being documented or being realized. And much of these communities, because of being in the borders, they always don't look at the international borders as something that is very something that needs to be considered a lot, because you may walk and you realize that as you walk 2 or 3 steps, you're already in Kenya. You come back the next morning or the next few minutes, you're already in Kenya, and that kind of thing. So they don't look at it as something that is very, very important to them, and it doesn't benefit them a lot. But what is key is that they trade without realizing that those international borders are key, or maybe are of any value, because the other side, they're relatives, this side, they're relatives. So they do things knowing that whatever happens that side impacts them directly. Likewise to the Kenyan community, they also look at what happens in the Ugandan side as something that affects them so seriously. So I want to end there, because what I'm doing currently, and say that maybe in the subsequent engagement, we'll be able to settle and really fully put a lot of energy in this.
Thank you very much for your contribution, dear George. Mark, please, you have the final words.
All right. Once again, thank you so much. And this has been really very, very informative. So in my concluding remarks, I just want to state that for the first time, I saw the community contribute money to a candidate, which is as opposed to what is in Uganda, where people actually prefer to first eat what the candidate has, because they know when they go to office, there is nothing that they are going, okay, possibly they are skeptical what could happen thereafter. So for them, they would prefer to first eat. But of course, we saw communities contribute money to politicians. Then my takeaway from the Kenyan politics is that we need to respect the constitution. We had Chebukati say, despite the intimidations, despite the threats, we have seen a culture nowadays whereby when people are swearing in that Bible, they don't respect it anymore. People just swear in for the sake of swearing in. But when Chebukati was submitting before declaring the president-elect, he said, I swore in to serve the people of Kenya. And what I'm going to read is the will of the people of Kenya. But I know it could have been a different story if it was in Uganda. So as Uganda, we pick many lessons. For example, we need to respect the constitution. Swearing in should not just be a culture that should be done. People should really mean what they say when they are swearing in. And then the other one is another lesson that we draw as Ugandans is how elections are conducted. We saw memes on Twitter and on Facebook where people are depicting leaders who are of Uganda who are really wondering how Kenyans are downloading results like they are downloading music on the internet. So we really pick lessons on how elections should be conducted in a very transparent manner. Thank you so much for giving me opportunity to speak on this platform. Thank you so much and good afternoon, good morning to everyone.
Thank you, our dear discussants, for this enriching experiential sharing. You've shared a lot about your experiences. You've given us more perspective into what happens in the eastern part of Uganda, specifically on the border between Kenya and Uganda. These are stories that we rarely hear. The interconnectedness is so unique that, like I said before, many communities in Uganda, for instance, at the border, are so part of Kenya than the part of Uganda. And likewise, many communities at the border, at the western border of Kenya, are so much connected to Uganda than they are to Kenya. So this should give us a clear example that indeed we can work together as a people. We can unite as a people, and this is what Nimrod said. The spirit of Ubuntu, Pan-Africanism, the spirit of EAC, all these actually, EAC and Pan-Africanism are based on the spirit of Ubuntu, that you are, that I am because you are. And because you are, therefore I am. Omuntu, ngomuntu, ngabantu. So that is what is supposed to guide us in what we do, in our relations between one another. And these border communities give us a clear template of unity and a lesson to Uganda. It's important that because of this interconnectedness, that we copy the right things from Kenya. If Kenya could have peaceful elections, if Kenya could have transparency in the elections, if people could mobilize and support and give financial support to politicians at grassroots levels, why shouldn't it be the case in Uganda? Why shouldn't we copy the good things that Kenya has presented to us? I think it's a clarion call for people in Uganda, for people in Tanzania, for people in South Sudan, for the Democratic Republic of Congo, Rwanda, and Burundi to copy what Kenya has presented to us, the good, of course. And there is always, of course, room for improvement for Kenya. Our business community, at least for the first time, I think, in a long time, have not been as adversely affected as they were in the past. We've had experiences of people saying in 2007, and indeed 2007, 2008 still has, those two periods have a big trauma within the communities, and they have learned better. That is why this year things were much better, things improved, and the situation was, I could say, fairly better and fairly good. Nimrod further shared that security and democracy are some of the things we learned, and yes, I also agree. Women in governance, we need to copy that also. And I encourage, thank you, Zira, for bringing that up. I encourage all women in East Africa, in Uganda, to stand up, to show up, to be counted, to oppose any force that would want to put women down. Because we've learned from experience that when women are doing great, when women rise, indeed the society rises also. Thank you very much for tuning in to this show. We have been hosted by Center for Constitutional Governance together with Civic Space TV. Thank you for tuning in. I am your host, Martin, and have a great week.